All kinds of fallout from the terrorist attack in Washington, D.C., from the president's meeting with the president of South Africa in the media, and the congressmen and women making much ado about everything. I'm Tony Kinnett from the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're sitting down with Rebecca Downs, the web editor over at townhall.com, to talk about the general landscape for May 23rd, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Heading over to Rebecca Downs from townhall.com, their web editor. Rebecca, howdy, how's it going?
Howdy, Tony. Happy to be here. Lots to talk about today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for Top News in 10. If there is one thing that I think everyone should be able to glean from the situation in South Africa, from the horrible terrorist attack in Washington, D.C., and a lot of other incidents of violence that have occurred around the country and the world in the last couple of years, it is this: consider learning to conceal carry. It is essential, whether you are a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're black, white, brown. God created all men. Samuel Colt made them equal. Or, as it is also said, armed minorities are harder to oppress.
Don't make yourself a victim. There's been a lot of stuff about Israel on my feed on both social media channels, so it's hard to say, oh, this was so-and-so from so-and-so who posted this. But I have seen more than one post calling for Jews to carry right now, especially.
Yeah, we've talked to law enforcement officers before who do a lot of trainings with Jews, with Christians, with Hindus. There was a terror attack against Indian people in Wisconsin not too long ago. And so when we look at these kind of situations, the media reaction is incredible to me because the words that they choose to use, and again, you're a web editor over at Town Hall, our business is to look at not only how the media frames a story through explicit language, but also the words that they choose not to use.
Exactly.
You ever notice if there is a hint of a suspicion, there might have been someone from the right that perpetuates a crime? The New York Times is like, right-wing terrorist terrorizes everyone with his white supremacy, alt-right evil.
CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan, too. I think you talked about him a few weeks ago. He was all for that narrative.
Here's that clip.
And while America's roots are soaked in bloodshed, violence in the country today is mostly from right-wing extremism. From Oklahoma City to Charlottesville to January 6th. There is simply no equivalent on the left.
So apparently the right has a monopoly on hate crimes, but I'm looking here at the situation in Washington, D.C. last night. I'm looking at the horrible murders that take place in a lot of cities around the country on the regular. I also happen to observe a lot of the vandalism, the theft, the assaults that occur on a lot of university campuses around the country. Yeah. Don't seem very right-wing extremism-y to me, but, you know, that's not exactly something CNN considers when they get the evening lineup ready to go.
Right? Because it's not convenient for their narrative, Tony. And something that the right wing does, non-extremists on the right wing, we do exist. We are not afraid to call it out. I've noticed it's pretty tricky for the left to call it out, or they make excuses, something of that nature. They play this wonderful game of whataboutism.
So Ilhan Omar will, refuse to even say, I condemn any violent attack, anything like that, which, again, all she had to do on camera. And yes, later she did throw a little tweet up just, condemning violence in general. But here's the clip of her saying that, well, she just has to go.
Congresswoman Omar, can I get your reaction to the shooting that happened in D.C. last night?
I'm going to go for now.
Thank you.
So, quite curious how she has to go. She can't even say, I condemn any violent attack. Even that would be a baseline easy thing to say, not a problem. However, back in 2018, on an interview, she was talking about how, well, really, we need to be really fearful of these white men, the cause of most deaths. Ooh.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
So she put out a post that, because let's be real here, she did put out a post, but it was the most generic post, like,
quote, "I am appalled by the deadly shooting at the Capitol Jewish Museum last night, holding the victims, their families, and loved ones in my thoughts and prayers." Wait a minute. I thought saying thoughts and prayers was an insult.
There you go right there.
Wait a minute here. Then she says violence should have no place in our country. Where was that after the Luigi Mangione shooting of the United Healthcare CEO? Did anyone know where that one went?
I mean, they're making musicals about him.
Oh,
sold out
musicals
in California about Luigi Mangione. I know that's what's going on.
So the left has their obsession with these goobers. And then, of course, when we're looking at any kind of a situation, any kind at all, we look at the media, we look at the left-wing, the congressmen and women that are currently in power in committees, leaning over the railings to try to get camera time on this kind of nonsense. Yeah. But overall, when I'm looking at these kind of situations, my concern is with the average American. My concern is with what people in all over the country, what they're getting from this, whether or not they feel safe, the kind of things that they're focused on. I don't think that there's even a shred of the population right now in the country that is taking the media's word for it about South Africa or the Washington, D.C. terror attack last night.
Correct. So I think in the case of what happened in the tragedy in DC, luckily there's been a lot of Jewish Insider, a lot of Jewish media that I think is nice to hear those stories. But the South Africa one is complete bogus. My feed was full. Our own editor, Katie Pavlich, was going through calling out the various media outlets. ABC News had a terrible one. ABC News already has the community notes for it.
ABC News absolutely floored me. I really could not believe the nonsense, trying to come out and suggest, well, really nothing bad happening over there. Actually, South Africa is a wonderful place, full of complex, wonderful mystery. And I'm amazed. I'm amazed that they think that in the middle of a record amount of pushback from Americans trying to take in media at the moment, they're not looking for this kind of corporate heavy-handed nonsense. ABC's ratings are through the floor.
Good.
I got to ask at some point, when do the stockholders over at ABC, again, that's Disney, right? When do Disney stockholders sue for actions that you could make the case are directly against the interests of stakeholders?
Well, I feel like they're making enough money. Disney is with their ticket prices, but that's a very good point. We're seeing that issue with CBS News, with Paramount. They're looking to settle the lawsuit with Donald Trump.
I did see that. And I'm curious as to at what point you're going to see a network, rather than just a couple of firings or dismissals here and there, but at what moment you're actually going to see some right down the middle, we're going to change how we're doing media at this company. We're going to be hiring these kind of people. We're going to hold this kind of editorial standard. I mean, Jeffrey Bezos floated the idea with the Washington Post, kind of, but that's about as far as it got.
Yeah, people have to remember he's not some hardline conservative. Maybe making progress, but that's something that's important to keep in mind. LA Times did that. Not only did they not endorse Kamala Harris, one of their own from being from California, for the 2024 election, they also brought on Scott Jennings. He's affiliated with them now as well.
The man, the myth, and the legend, I might say. Watching Scott Jennings smack people. I mean, for example, again, over the recent acts of racial aggression in South Africa. Here's a clip.
So if the Afrikaners don't actually like the land, they can leave. that country.
They are. They're leaving to come here.
No. They can
These refugees are coming here.
They can actually leave and go to where their native land is, which is probably Germany.
Are you against them coming here?
Holland, probably. Holland,
Are you
yes.
against them coming here?
I'm against the hypocrisy of this administration.
No, that's not the question. The question is, are you against them coming here?
If there was actually a genocide happening, like there is in other places in Sudan, in the Congo, I'm not opposed for Congolese and for the Sudanese to come to Africa, just like I'm not opposed to Venezuelans and South Americans coming to America if they are fleeing and looking for asylum. What I am
just
against,
these 50 people you're against.
I am against, it's not about being against them. What I am against is that they are being given special treatment when there is not a genocide happening in South Africa, and they just don't like the law of the land.
Well,
so you know what they tell people?
So we've got all of these moments of Americans recognizing that there isn't even a story for a lot of these media headlines anymore. They're not even giving it a shred of their time, despite the actions that are persistent and the effort to cover these things up, which again is, I don't know if you got to admire the dedication to deception at this point. I mean, it takes a lot of work to just walk out in front of people and go, I know you hate me, but I'm going to triple down on this lie.
They're committed. They're committed.
Before you go, make sure you're subscribed to the Tony Kinnett Cast by checking the description down below, and join us later today for a conversation about immigration policy, where it comes from, and where we're going with it, outside of just the spending in the big beautiful bill, which we'll be talking about with Bradley Devlin. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Top News in 10. Take care.